And today we continue the lecture what we stopped yesterday. The origin of man. Biblically, we knew very well, but different theories understand the origin of man in different ways. The naturalistic understand that this is a process of evolution. And the theistic means those who believe in God. Theistic concepts also, they have two views. One is the theistic evolution and special creation. Some believe that, of course, it is God who created, but it's the theistic evolution. God has overseen that evolution process. Naturalistic, defined by the modern theory of evolution, this denies biblical revelation, denies the special nature of man, founded in atheistic humanism, hostile to God and the scriptures, taught as de facto truth, sees man as the end product of a series of accidents and chances over millions of years of time. So the theistic evolution, the other day, I have explained a little bit, attempts to merge the Bible and evolution, like a synchronizing Bible and evolution. Attempts to explain creation in terms of an evolutionary model, engineered and supervised by God. Of course, it's God who created, but God supervised the process of evolution, supported by those who want a supernatural God, but who also want to be seen as scientific and rational by pairs, combining both, synchronizing. So for them, the theistic evolution, two major brands. Number one is a gap theory. The other day, Brother Joseph asked me about this question. Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2 are separated by a gap by millions of years where evolutionary processes took place. Thus, the creation accounts in Genesis 1:3 following is not really a creation, but a recreation. So they believe the first creation in the Bible we see this, there is a huge gap between this. That's what they believe. The day age theory. Each day of Genesis 1 is actually an indeterminate period of time, millions of years in length, during which evolution guided the creative process. So how do we understand this? There is no biblical evidence or support that there is or was a gap between Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2. There is no biblical evidence. If there is a gap theory, and if there was a gap, somewhere in the 66 books of the Bible, we would have seen that reflection. But nowhere in the Bible we see, therefore, we don't believe this because our base is on the Bible. The days of Genesis 1 are most clearly understood to mean literal, 24 days hour. Whenever in that Hebrew word day, yom, is used with an original number in the Old Testament. Example, first, second, third. It always refers to a literal 24 hours day. The usage of the term evening and morning suggests strongly that this is a 24 hours day, not a long geological age. So the Bible very clear. There was a morning and there was the evening. So the sun rises in the morning and sun sets at the evening. Through that, we understand that there is no gap, only 24 hours day. Science, since God is omnipotent, he could not need to take eons of time to evolve something he could call into existence in a moment of time. The Bible says God rested on the seventh day and Adam fell after the seventh day. Clearly, the usage of day here cannot refer to some long geological age. It's very clear. The Bible very clearly talks about it. So the 7 days of the work week, with the seventh being a day of rest, was founded on the creation week account of Exodus 20 and 11. The near universal acceptance and the usage of a 7-day week going back thousands of years in many different human cultures and traditions. So you can read it. I don't want to explain much of it. Let me go. The nature of man, the image of God, imago Dei. The other day we have seen the dichotomy and trichotomy and the origin of soul. We discuss on this, particularly the thought to be many things. What is the image of God? This concept really helps us to understand man in a holistic manner. Physical form. We proved that scripture indicates God is a spirit being with a physical form. Both the Father and the Son have that form. Only the Spirit is just spirit. Neutic capacity. Man can reason and has an intellect, emotions, and will. He can think and reason. Animals have this too, but not to as large a degree like man. So some biblical scholars understand the image that we see in the Bible. God created man in his image in that sense, intellect, emotions, and will. And God has created with that image. Spiritual capacity also. Man is God conscious. Although this is true, it does not necessarily imply that the image of God refers to this capacity only. Man is an eternal being, unlike animals. So what I say, eternal beings, there is a beginning for man and there is no end for man, particularly the spirit. There is no death. Either we will be going to heaven or the hell. The life cannot, there is no end for the life. Life has come from the life because God breathed his spirit into the nostrils of man. So man became a living being. That spirit that is there in the man will live forever and ever. Man has a moral sense of right and wrong. Animals do not have that. Relational capacity. Most likely is the close set. Man was created to have a relationship with God. Of all beings in creation, man alone has the capacity to form and develop relationships. Image of God. How do we understand this? Genesis 1:26 says, then God said, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the sky and over the cattle and over all the earth and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. So how do we understand this image? The image of God. Is that God has that, like what we have, a physical image or a spiritual image? Scholars have been thinking of it. The fallen man still is God's image. Even though we are fallen, still we have that God's image in us. We are imprinted by God. Genesis 9:6 speaks of a man as in the image of God. Man as in the image of God. So the James 3:9 also describes man as after the likeness. Homoios. Man as after the likeness of God. So we have the creativity and then we have the productivity. The 1 Corinthians 11:7 also says, man is the image and the glory of God. Man is the image and the glory of God. Reflection of God's glory can be seen in man. Image. So the Hebrew word teslem, from an unused root meaning to shade, a pattern, that is figuratively illusion. resemblance, hence a representative figure. Hope you understand my terminology. A representative figure, especially an idol, image. Sometimes we see that idol as a representation. So don't misunderstand. It has nothing to do with the idolatry or idol worship. Just to understand the root word, I am just trying to explain. A representation. Man is the representation of a figurative representation. Not exactly God, but that the image, imprint image is in the man. So perhaps it is best to see the image of God as being manifested in many ways. Mainly, the Hebrew word is clear. It is a physical representation that is given an eternal soul that has spiritual capacity. So what is the image of God? That's what we are trying to understand. The image of God can be seen with the representation of spiritual capacity, ability to form relationships. Because the God, the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit had the ability to have that relationship within the Trinity from the beginning. That's the uniqueness of Trinitarian concept in the biblical theology. The relationship, ability to form relationships and relate to his creator, ability to think, reason, feel, and decide. These are the representative image of God. Responsibility for decisions, both good and bad, and moral capacity. The image of God can be seen through these shadows that we have today. The composition of man and the composition of non-material part, dichotomous view we have seen the other day, two-part being, body and soul. What is the non-material part in us? The material part is the physical structure, what we have, the flesh and the blood, and then what we have, the structure, the physical body. And within this physical body, we have a non-material part. The non-material part. Some people try to understand different ways, but what Bible says, we look at it. Two-part being, one is body and soul. Some scholars believe body and there is a soul. This dichotomy, two-part body. And then soul and spirit are same substance, but different functions. Soul and body have the same substance, but different functions. Soul has a different function and the body has a different function. Man became a living being. You see Genesis 2 verse 7. Man became a living being. The body, physical body, became a living being with another soul with a different substance. Both have a same substance but different functions. Soul and spirit used interchangeably in different verses. Genesis 41:8, Psalm 42:6. Sometimes soul and spirit, these terms are interchangeably used in the Bible, in the Hebrew words. Body and soul constitute whole person. Body and the soul constitute the whole person. Matthew 10:28, 1 Corinthians 5:3. That is the dichotomic view with the biblical base. And trichotomous view, the second view about man. We are studying anthropology, right? We need to understand all these concepts. Dichotomy means two types of man has a two elements, body and soul. Trichotomous view, and tri means three. Man has three parts. Number one, three parts being. Man is a three parts being, trichotomous view. And we have seen the dichotomous view, man has only two parts. Yesterday's Prakash asked me, these terms are very new, please explain. I'm explaining, please listen. So a three-part being, body, soul, and spirit. Body, soul, and spirit. Different in substance and function. What I mean, different in substance. They are not equal. Body, soul, and spirit, they are not equal in substance. They have a difference in the substance and different functions. Body has a different function, soul has a different function, spirit has a different function. The trichotomist view, soul is seen as a lower power consisting of man's imagination, memory, and understanding. Soul is seen as a lower power. And then the spirit is a higher power. Body, soul, and spirit we are discussing. Soul is having a lower power and spirit is having little higher power, consisting of reason, consciousness, and will. Reason, consciousness, and will. In those components, spirit has a higher power compared to the soul. And now, Paul seems to emphasize the three-part view in desiring the significance of the entire person, 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 23. And Hebrews chapter 4, verse 14 also implies a distinction between soul and spirit. Hebrews 4:12 implies a distinction between spirit and the soul. These Bible verses you read later, the file is with you, and meditate on those words. You will be enlightened. 1 Corinthians 2:14 to 14, 3 to 4, these two verses suggest a threefold classification: natural, fleshly, carnal, soulish, and spiritual. Particularly, I think it was Watchman Nee, the Chinese missionary and God servant in China once upon a time. A great, we can't call him as a theologian, but a lay theologian, developed a lot of writings on this. If you can get his book entitled Soul, Spirit, and Flesh. I think something you type Watchman Nee, you get his books. Yeah, the title of the book is The Carnal Man. There are several other titles of his writings. He talks about this trichotomist view: fleshly, soulish, and spiritual. So this is the difference between dichotomist view and trichotomist view. Composition of non-material part. What is non-material part? The body. Let's see. We have seen the composition of, we have been seeing the composition of non-material part, the soul, body, spirit. A multi-faced view. Soul and spirit commonly describe non-material part, but also four other terms used. Heart describes emotion. Jeremiah 79, the heart is more deceitful than all else and is desperately sick. Who can understand it? This is a non-material. Jeremiah 17:10 also says, I, the Lord, search the heart. I test the mind, even to give to each man according to his ways, according to the results of his deeds. It's the non-material part. And the other thing is consciousness for moral sense, but maybe searched and unreliable. 1 Timothy 4:2. Maybe weak and overreact. Mind, the non-material part, is intellect blinded by Satan, darkened and futile, but we can renew this mind. Violational aspect. And then the third one, will, of unbeliever tends to follow desires of the flesh. But the believer can will to do God's will. All right. So this is the trichotomist view: consciousness, mind, and will. Views dichotomy. We come back again. Views man as material and immaterial. The material refers to physical form and existence. Immaterial refers to the soul and spirit. Support for this view is that the terms soul and spirit are used interchangeably in the Bible. Luke 1:46 to 47, James 5:20, as I already said. And trichotomist, as I already said, man consists of body, soul, and spirit. Body, physical existence; soul, intellect, emotions, will, personality; spirit, God consciousness. The combination of these three, trichotomy: body, soul, and spirit. We are still discussing only two concepts: dichotomist view and trichotomist view. Support for trichotomy: apparent distinction between soul and spirit. 1 Thessalonians 5:23, Hebrew 4:12. The Hebrew word nephesh is translated best creature and soul. Leviticus 24:18, Genesis 2:7, Genesis 2:19. Apparent three levels of consciousness: self, world, and God. Apparent visibility can be seen there. Dichotomy or trichotomy. How do we understand this? What is the tension between these two? The world used the Bible to most often refer to the immaterial part of man in heart. In the Bible, we see the word used in the Bible most often refer to the immaterial part of man in heart. It is the heart that is deceitful, as I already said, Jeremiah and Matthew also, and from which our character is revealed. Our immaterial part apparently has a soul body, as we are recognizable in the intermediate state, even though we do not have a physical body. So now coming to the difficult part of the discussion. This is all a philosophy, by the way, the biblical philosophy. It may be a little difficult. You may be wondering why we need to do all this exercise. This really helps us to worship God, a wonderful God who created us with an amazing um, uh, internal parts of us, and the origin of soul. Sometimes you may not have these questions, but still people have the questions. What is the origin of soul? How do we understand? Whether it's a dichotomy or trichotomy, yes, we believe that there is a soul within us. What is the origin of it? Where pre-incarnational view says man existed prior to his incarnation. Some early church fathers like Origen, Tertullian, and all those, even a lot of scholars, they wrestle with these issues, and everybody has their own position. Man existed prior to his incarnation. Before we are born in our mother's womb, the soul was already existed with God. That's the view of pre-incarnational view. Originally created at the time of creation, or may have been a spirit, offspring of God. That's one view. And the second view is creationalism. They have their own Bible verses. Creationalism. God creates a new soul at conception. When a zygote is formed in mother's womb, when this sperm meets the egg, that's the time zygote forms. The moment the sperm reaches the egg, that's the moment God sends the soul. That's one concept. Creationalism. God creates the soul that time and he sends. And Traducian view is the soul is derived along with the body through the process of conception. The soul develops and derives along with the body as the body starts growing in the mother's womb in different stages through the process of conception. So I think I'm confusing you, many of you. You may be wondering what is right. So we need to be biblical and understand, we need to wrestle with our issue. This is theology, by the way. Support for traducianism. There is no biblical evidence that we existed prior to incarnation. This is ruled out. Creationism would imply God is still creating, which would have implications for our understanding of the seventh day of creation and God is rest. No, if God is still creating, we need to question that, because when God created a seventh day, 6 days he said it is perfect, good, the creation was over, and he rested. God creates a perfect soul, which is then immediately placed in a fallen body, and as a result become sinful. So traditionalism bypasses the problems of the creationist view. He is a better fit with the statement of Genesis 1 that God created every living thing to reproduce after its own kind. Theologically explains the imputation of guilt and the original corruption all men have from the moment of conception. And we have this saying, we were all in Adam. When Adam sinned, we all have sinned. Do you remember this kind of statements in here and there? You might have heard in some theological classes or even in the preaching. Intellect, creationalists of our soul, intellect, the ability to think, learn, and reason, the ability to sense the future and analyze possible outcomes of various decisions we could make, the ability to comprehend and understand our physical environment, the ability to know and remember, because this is the intellect. We have this intellect. So we have emotion, the ability to feel emotions, the ability to form relationships and determine courses of actions based on in, intelligible emotions and not strict logical or reason. It is intrinsically connected to the ability to form and maintain relationships. So we have as will, the ability to decide between various courses of action. I don't need to explain much on this, Consciousness, a moral compass, an innate and essential component of imago Dei. This is the image of God. He is not an absolute, only a governor. Forms us of what it has been programmed to determine is right and wrong. Is bound closely with our culture and nature. Consciousness cannot be fooled. It knows us better than anyone else, even ourselves, because it knows we cannot fool it. So these are the theories and explanations related to the soul. Now coming to the creation, Genesis 1:1, Elohim, God created, Elohim. This is the name of transcendence. In the beginning, God, the Hebrew word Elohim. He is the name of transcendence. Transcendent God. God is beyond the creation. Creation and creator are not one. The creator who is beyond the creation and transcendent. And the creation is viewed in summary fashion in chapter 1. Elohim, gods. The plurality can be seen there within that. The triune God. Yahweh, Elohim created this. Genesis 2:7. This is the name of the covenant Lord. And the historical covenant, the covenant name was used to signify the relationship between God and man. So why do we need to understand creation? Our relationship with this creation is so significant. Then only we will be able to understand who man is. Man was formed out of this creation. God is the one who created everything in this universe. And man was formed. Formed, the meaning implies skill and sovereignty. Skill and sovereignty. The colors are different on the screen. On the little mobile, you may not be able to see. It is used of a craftsman in relation to his materials. Impersonal. Many refer to carving, casting, sizzling, fashioning in clay, focus on design and care. So a potter designs the pot with his hands. In that similar fashion, man was formed with by the intellectual God. Breathed, we see the other word, breathe. God breathed his spirit into the nostrils of man. The word breathed is to exhale or blow. Exhale, a blow. In the context, it is personal, face-to-face intimacy as in a kiss. God took interest in man with that personal relationship. He created, he formed. So man was formed by the intellectual God. This notion of intimacy is determined by the context. It is not intrinsic to the verb. Distinctive features of man's origin. Distinctive features of man's origin. We are studying anthropology. Still we are wrestling with the issues. So God formed man out of the earth, but created the animals out of nothing. You need to understand here. God created man out of something, means out of the mud, out of the earth, but created the animals out of nothing. Man did not come out of nothing. He came out of something. Personal relationship. He formed. Man was formed. So why do we need to understand? Some creation stories, mythological stories, continue to teach that man has come in a spectacular way. No, Bible doesn't teach that. Bible teach that God of the universe has a special interest in man. He himself formed the man. God breathed into man. No mention of this with animals. You know, there is no mention of this with the animals. God breathing or maybe giving something. The animals just came like that, out of nothing. When he spoke, they came into existence. But man was not like that. He did not spoke to bring existence of man. He took personal interest. He became one with the creation. He came down, maybe as a personal relationship. He took interest in man, and he took interest. He formed man out of something from the earth. That's what I wanted to emphasize. We are made in their image. This is my summary of the teaching. In their image, in the Trinitarian God's image. Let us make man in our image. That's what Bible says. Let us. The plural word has been used there. In a matter of fact, Elohim, God, is a plural word in Hebrew. Do babies that die go to? Do babies that die go to heaven? After this question, I'll stop. So, do babies die after death? This is a question. Somebody is raising an issue. Anna, we don't see screen. Anna, oh really? Oh, sorry. Thank you. Um, okay, there was some problem, I think. Give me a second. I'll project it again. Okay. Can you see the screen now? Do babies that die go to heaven? Friends, can somebody reply me? Are you able to see now? Joshua?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay then. Thank you. So, Do babies die? Babies that die go to heaven? This is a big question. On the basis of that, this has some implication with the baptism to the babies and so on and so forth. So theory, at the moment of conception, we are perfect and sinless. Why do we not? Because this has some relation with the soul, the origin of soul. Theory, at the moment of conception, we are perfect and sinless. But we have the capacity to sin given by Adam. That some people believe it. Our name is written in the book of life. But when we reach the age of accountability, at some point, if we reject Christ or choose to sin, our names are blotted out of the book of life. There's some kind of understanding. Uh, and Revelation 3:5 says, he who overcomes will thus be clothed in white garments, and I will not erase his name from the book of life.
Nice.
I will confess his name before my Father and before his angels. Yeah, we will have a discussion on that. The original responsibilities assume headship over nature. Genesis 1:26, Hebrews 2:5 to 6. Live in Eden, the garden of God. Genesis 2:15. Name all creatures, thus symbolizing his permanence over them. Genesis 2:19 to 20. Love and protect his wife. Love and protect his wife. Genesis 2:24. These are the original responsibilities given. Reproduce and populate the earth. Enjoy all that God created with the exception of the one tree. Walk and talk with God. Absolute freedom. The image is shattered. We are coming back to the image. What happened to the original image when what God has given to us? It has been shattered. Man's original state was that of innocence, not guilty with sin, not meritorious with righteousness, disobedience to God's command regarding the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, plundered creation, and man into sin, corruption, and decay. Man into corruption and so Eve was deceived. The pathology of the fall. We see she was not the original recipient of the command regarding the tree. She was created after God told Adam. Directly states that the woman was deceived. Satan appealed to Eve's pride and Eve's sight. Adam was not deceived. And the results of fall we know very well. The serpent was condemned to a life on its belly. Satan was told somebody his head would crushed by the seed of the woman. Adam and Eve would experience the shame, fear, and the guilt of fall. You will be like God, knowing good and evil. This is the deception and the fall, the consequence of sin we know. And what was at the root? Somehow be led astray from your sincere and pure devotion to Christ. And simple but pervasive consciousness. The perfect relationship of God and humankind is Savior. The relationship between humankind and the world is disrupted. The relationship between humans are no longer perfect. We are understanding anthropology. Why there is so much confusion in the humans now today? Because of sin, because of the fallen nature. Word connotations, sin, missing the mark, and tomorrow we see the fall of man, and then it has some relationship with the hamartiology, the doctrine of sin. Maybe we continue that study, a good summary of the results of fall and theories of fall and the falls and the different races, the value and all those. Um, we will see tomorrow, and we'll take up some more questions. So let me stop here with all this intellectual uh, discussions. Let me unmute you so that you can talk with me and discuss. Okay. Now you have the permission to unmute and discuss and talk.